Welcome to Mac for the Blind Spring Course 2022 number 1. Today we're talking about the calendar on the Mac, how to set new appointments, how to make them recurring, how to navigate with success. Let's join John D. Panarese for this short demo.
All right, so welcome to the Mac for the Blind Spring 2022 online courses. This is the first of 5 courses. So let's just start by talking about the calendar on the Mac. It is similar in that, like iOS, it gets a bad rep. It is pretty much vilified by some blind Mac users as being inaccessible or difficult or things along those lines. And I'm not going to totally disagree with that. iCal, if anybody is a longtime Mac user, if you remember iCal in the earlier versions of Calendar, it actually was a little bit more straightforward and more easily managed than the calendar is now over the last, 3 or 4 versions of Mac OS. But with that being said, I still don't feel that it is inaccessible. I believe it's just like I tell my clients with both the Mac and iOS calendars, it's just a matter of, no pun intended with blind people, but you got to know what you're looking at. If you understand this interface, if you understand what's going on with the calendar and you use it, you actually set up a few events and you navigate your calendar and you get an idea of how it works. It really is very, very easy and straightforward. And the great thing about it is if you are a Apple user in the sense that you have iDevices such as an iPhone or an iPad, as well as your Mac or multiple Macs, your calendars will sync with iCloud. So a calendar is one of the services that does sync with all your Apple devices. So if you look in settings, in your iPhone settings, under your iCloud, where it says your name at the top of the settings, and you select iCloud, you'll see the services include Calendar. So if you turn it on, and as long as you're logged into the same iCloud account or Apple ID, I guess is another way of saying it, on all your devices, and you have the calendar turned on in services, you should be able to sync your calendars. So let's hop on over.
Calendar, event title, win.
So
Calendar.
The very top view, in other words, because the one thing you must understand about the Mac calendar is there are levels of interaction that are involved. That is what I think sometimes throws people off, because a lot of times with the Mac, you interact once and you're good to go. But unfortunately, with the calendar, there are several levels of interaction that are involved. And if you're not really certain what it is you're looking at, it's going to be a little confusing. So
vertical Tuesday, vertical toolbar, full screen button.
All right. So
actions available.
At this point, I'm at the furthest view that you can have. In other words, the top level of the calendar. So we have the toolbar,
vertical splitter,
a vertical splitter.
Tuesday, April 26th, 2022.
And then you have the calendar canvas area. So the real major areas is the toolbar and the calendar canvas area. We'll get back to the toolbar a little later on, because there are a couple of things I want to point out in the toolbar that they kind of changed in a couple of previous versions of Mac OS. So we're going to interact with this with the canvas area.
In Tuesday, April 26th, 2022, month calendar area group.
So you heard month calendar
previous month button.
Area group.
Grid previous month button.
So we have the previous month button,
today button,
the today button,
next month button,
next month
grid,
and the actual calendar grid. Now, you don't necessarily have to worry about the previous or next buttons, because a great keyboard shortcut to remember in your calendar is Command left and Command right arrows. Now, provided, depending, I should say, on which calendar view you have, and I'm going to discuss that momentarily, it will move you backwards or forwards by, let's say, month or week or day. So the default calendar view, which is the one that I prefer, is the month view. Now, from a visual standpoint, it is a grid, just like on the iPhone calendar, a 6x7 grid. So it is the 6 weeks that comprise the month, that around that month. It does have overlap, obviously, into the month before and the month after. And it's each of the rows are the 7 days of the week going from Sunday through Saturday. So that is your grid. I'm going to interact with my grid.
In grid, Sunday, March 27th, 3 events list.
So we have Sunday. So if I go down, I VO down arrow, I'm going to keep going down ahead by Sundays.
Sunday, April 3rd, 6 events lit. Sunday, April 10th, 2 events lit. Sunday, April 17th, 3 events list.
Now, if I go to the right, I'm going to start going through the days of the week.
Monday, April 18th, Tuesday, April 19th, Wednesday, April 20th, 7 events list.
So you also hear it say that there are X events with each of the days as I navigate through them. Now, obviously, if you haven't put stuff on your calendar, or, you have a very light calendar, there's only a few things you put on there, doctor's appointment, dentist, whatever, you're not going to have the kind of calendar that you're hearing that I have. I schedule all my client sessions and my own, personal doctor's appointments, other things that I need to do. I include on my calendar. So that's why you hear certain days have 3 events, 7 events, stuff like that. Also keep in mind that Apple includes a holidays calendar that is theoretically supposed to have all the major US holidays. So you may see or hear events that you're like, well, how could I have 2 events on this day or whatever, only to discover, that you have stuff from the Apple calendar. So
Tuesday, Sunday, April 17th, 3 events list.
So I have 3 events.
In Sunday, Arizona, Easter, April
Easter,
Arizona at NY Mets.
So this was the Arizona at New York Mets because I have the New York Mets calendar.
NY Islanders at Toronto.
And the Islanders at Toronto because I'm also subscribed to the New York Islanders calendar as I do a sports radio show and cover the local teams. So I like to keep track of what teams are playing because I just don't have the time to necessarily always go and be on top of it. But there's my 3 events for Easter. So you notice Easter was included. So you'll find that other days you may have, Valentine's Day in February. You may have the President's Day, obviously January 1st, New Year's Day, Christmas, etc. But then your events are also going to be included as well. So let me go to another.
Out of Monday, April 18th, 3 events list. Tuesday, April 19th, 9 events list. In training with Ren L starts on April.
So we have one of my training events, training with Ren L, one of my Washington State clients. So I interacted with the day, which was Tuesday, April the 18th. And just as I did with Easter Sunday, and as I VO left and VO right arrow, you're going to hear all of the events that I have on, scheduled on
ATIV testing at Zoom Governor. NC testing. Mac for the Blind Sprint 2000. San Francisco at NY Mets. Starts on April 19th, 2022 at 3:10 p.m. and ends at 6:10 p.m.
So if I wanted to edit or, look at any of these events more closely. So let me just go.
Mac for NC test. ATI training with Ren L start.
So if I VO space on any event.
Event title window. Training with.
Then I see what's called the event details screen. Now it is different than earlier versions of Mac OS. As I said, the earlier versions of iCal and the first couple of incarnations of Calendar really made the event details a little bit easier to deal with. In this case, we have the title, which is the training with Ren L.
Work. Pop-up button.
We have the calendar that it belongs to, which is my work calendar, because I have a work, I have a home, I have the Islanders, I have the Mets, I have a couple of shared calendars with people. So when you're scheduling an event, and I will talk about that in a little bit, you can pick the calendar you want this event assigned to if it's important to you.
Add location or video call, edit text.
So you can have a location, or you could put the, if it's a Zoom meeting or something like that, you can put that in this field. So if you have a birthday party and it's at, what do you call it? A Knights of Columbus Hall or a restaurant, you could theoretically put the street address, if you happen to know it, of that place into the location field.
None, pop-up button. At none, pop-up, April 19th, none.
So this is also
April 19th, 2022, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. button.
So you hear 1 to 2 p.m. Now, if I wanted to change the start time or the end time for this event, I would VO space because it is a button.
Alert 15 minutes before start, default button.
So I have the alert before 15 minutes start button. Again, if I wanted to edit this and change the leeway that I have set for being alerted, I could do that. With all my training events, since I'm really in one place all of the time at my home, or as I am now at my brother's, I only need 15 minutes before the next event. It's not like I have to travel. The only traffic I might hit is if I run into one of my nephews in the hallway outside using the facilities. So that's 15 minutes is more than enough for me.
Edit attendees button, group.
So I could edit attendees if I wanted to invite Ren directly. I could put his email address in and send him a calendar invite.
Add notes, URL, or attachments button.
So I could add notes. I could put a URL in here. I could have attachments. I could do all these things. Keep in mind, it's saying button. So anything that says a button means that you VO space on it, and that's going to expand and give you the ability to edit any of the, the things that are already customized by you. The thing that's different about this is there is no save. Well, let me put it this way. A lot of times, if you look around, there'll be no save button. But on occasion, you will find, let's see if this one has it.
Close window, show button.
It just has a show. It doesn't have an apply button. Sometimes it will have an apply, particularly if you make changes to the event. There will be an apply button that you have to VO space on. If you don't have an apply button, what I typically will do is go back to the title field and just hit enter, and it will save any changes that you made anyway. But I noticed at least in Monterey, if you do make any specific changes to the event, the apply button does get, become visible or is there for you to VO space on. As a side note,
add note, show button.
The show button allows you to then delete the appointment, because what happens is you can go back to your, to the calendar view where you have the days, the events that are scheduled for the day. You can actually hit the delete key if you want to get rid of that event. For some reason, it doesn't allow you to do that until you actually open the event and VO space on the show button. Once you do that, then you can go back and delete the event if it's something that got canceled, or, you just don't need it anymore or whatever. Now, by default, I think events will remain on your calendar for 30 days. And I think they automatically get deleted unless you set that otherwise, I think. Mine don't delete. And I'm pretty sure years ago I had set that up so that my events don't expire, simply because when I go back and do my training notes for clients, I like to leave the appointments on the calendar just to back check to make sure my lower math skills are still sharp as I age. So I like to look back on, if I work with that person earlier in the month, what day did I work? I just want to verify with the notes that I got the right days and times. So this is how you would look at an event or, edit it should you need to do so. What I would say or recommend to you is take your time. You want to get accustomed to these, to these different buttons. So what I would want to do is I want to go back to
edited alert April 19th, 2022, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m.
So if I needed for just for yucks, if I needed to change the start or the await, the end time,
April 19th, 2022, date area.
So we have the date area.
1 p.m.
We
Time
have
area.
the time area.
April 19th, 2022. Date area.
And then the end.
2 p.m. Time. April 1 p.m.
So I'm
Time
going to go
area.
to the start time.
April 19th, 2020.
April 19, 2020. So I could interact with this.
In date area. Date April.
So there's the month, April. If I wanted to change this to May,
March,
or I should say I'm going down, I'm VO down arrow, that's back. I don't know why I want to go back in time.
April, May.
So I'm VO up arrowing is May.
June, July.
So if I wanted to change it to a future month, I could just VO up arrow. I'm just going to go back to
June,
April.
May, April, out of date area.
I'm going to stop interacting. I'm going to go to the right to
1 p.m. Time area.
the time area. So I could interact here. And again, it's a picker.
In time area. 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4
So I'm
p.m.,
VO up arrowing
3 p.m., 2 p.m., 1 p.m.,
and I'm down VO down arrowing. And then we also have
0 minutes.
VO right arrow to the minutes. So if this had to be changed to 30 minutes or 45 minutes, I could just, count,
1, 2, 8, 11
you
minutes.
know, and just keep VO up arrowing, but I'm
10,
just going to go
8,
back down
3 minutes, 2, 1 minute, 0 minutes.
to the 0 minutes. And when I'm done with that,
Out of time area. April 19th, 2020.
and if I needed to do the same thing, I could do that with the end as well. So if I needed to change, because by default, when you create a calendar event, it is theoretically an hour in duration. So if you need to make that event shorter or longer, you will also have to edit the end time to match that while you're either editing or when you create it. So we'll talk about creating now. So I'm just going to hit the escape
Calendar
key.
window. 2 training with Ren L. Star Georgia.
Okay, so I don't really have to go anywhere at this point, because remember, with the vast majority of Apple applications, the magic command N, like in new, is always a new something. So in the case of a calendar, obviously the command N
New 2 items.
is a new event. So it puts you into the title to create the quick event. So I'm just going to call this
TEST space EVT.
So I'm just going to call it test event, and I'm going to hit the enter here.
New event. 8 items. Tested work. Pop-up button.
So by default, I'm just VO right arrowing. Work is my default calendar, but I could change this to home. I could change this to a different calendar by VO spacing. It's a drop down or pop-up menu. So I just pick a different calendar if I wanted to do so.
Add location or video call. Edit text.
There's my add location
None.
thing.
Pop-up button. April 26th, 2022, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. button.
So if I wanted to obviously set up the start and end time for this event, I would VO space.
April 26, 2022. Date area. In date
So I'm
area.
going to interact.
Day 26.
So
April.
I'm going to leave it April, but I'm going to go.
Day 26.
I'm going to make this
Day 29.
April 29th. I'm going to stop interacting.
Out of date area. 2 p.m. Time area.
So let's
In time
change the
area.
start time, because it always picks the current day and an hour ahead of what your current day is. That's what it does by default, just in case you're wondering. And as a side note, you do not have to navigate to the day on which you want to create that calendar event. It isn't necessary if you're willing to make the changes like this. So I'm just going
In time area.
to change this to,
1 p.m., 12 p.m., 11 a.m., 10 a.m.
so I'm just VO down arrowing, and I'm going to make it 10 a.m.
Out of time area. April 29th, 2022. Date area.
11
a.m. Time area.
This is
Calendar
the
has new
end.
in time area.
So I'm going to make it end
12 p.m., 1 p.m.
at 1 p.m. just for yucks.
Out of time
So
area.
I'm going to stop interacting.
None. Repeat. Pop-up button.
And then you have your repeat. If I wanted to make this a repeating event, I could VO space. And again, the drop-down menu would give me, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and then you can custom, and you can mess around with custom events. Like if it's let's say it's a group meeting that you have for, the Guide Dog Foundation, or maybe a blindness computer group, and they meet, or ACB or NFB, and you guys meet on the second and fourth Mondays of every month or something like that. You could make a repeating event and actually customize it to do that. And this way it would always be on your calendar at those appropriate days and times.
None. Travel time. Pop-up
And then
button.
you have travel time. So if you're using the location and would be an event that you have to travel to, you could make a default travel time that it would normally take you. So let's say you were scheduling a party at, a restaurant, and you put the name of the restaurant or the address, if you had the restaurant in your contacts with their street address. And let's say it takes you a half hour to get to that restaurant, you could set the travel time to a half hour. Now, what Calendar does is it works in conjunction with Maps. And with the Maps application, if there's any kind of traffic issues or anything like that that are reported, you'll actually get notified that it's going to take you longer to get to your scheduled event because, I-30 is experiencing road work or something like that. I've had this happen a couple of times where I actually took the time to put the travel time and the location to a couple of events. And I was kind of blown away by the fact that I was warned that there were traffic issues that would delay my amount of time. So it's up to you, obviously, if you want to go that in depth.
None. Alert pop-up button.
So then we have the alert. So I'm going to VO space.
Menu. Check at time of event. 5 minutes before.
So I'm VO down arrowing. I'm going to do
10 minutes before. 15, 30 minutes, 1 hour before.
1 hour before.
Test event. Insertion at beginning of alert. Add invitees. Edit text.
So if I wanted to add an invitee, I could put their email address.
Add notes, URL, or attachments.
So if I wanted to add any notes or anything, I could VO space on this, and then there would be an edit field for all of those different options, which I'm just going to leave as is.
Test event. Contents selected.
So
edit.
then I'm back at my title field. Now, there is no save or add button for some reason when you are creating the event. So just keep that in mind. What I typically do is I go back to the title field and I simply hit enter.
Test event. Starts on April. Training with IDT starts on April 29th.
So, and it automatically puts me in where I just scheduled this event. So you'll notice.
Test event. Starts on April 29th, 2022 at 10:00 a.m. and ends at 1:00 p.m.
So it automatically just puts me into April 29th, into that the actual day on the grid, and interacts me with that day. So now I have, even though this is not a real event. So let me see, can I delete this just by hitting delete?
Test event.
Let's see.
Month Sunday, month Tuesday, April 19th.
Oops. Now it kicked
Saturday,
me out.
April Friday, April 22nd.
So
6th Friday,
April
in
29th.
Friday. Training with Kelsey L. Training with IDT, Tampa Bay, and then what?
Yep, it deleted it. It's not there anymore. But if you go back and edit it, as I said later, to do that. So now another little trick, though, by the way, and I should have mentioned this, when you're typing in the title field, if you want to save yourself trouble, you have a syntax that you can type to put the event at its desired start time and end time, and if you need to change the duration of the event. I teach my clients to remember the acronym OAT, O-A-T, on, at, and title. So when you are creating the event, for example, I could have put I could have typed into the, actually you can do it the reverse too. You can do it. I just use OAT as the acronym to help people remember. But what I would do is I would type test event on April 29th at 10 a.m. And when I hit the enter key, the event would automatically go to April 29th and start at 10 a.m. and end at 11 a.m. with the title. I could also say on April 29th from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. And again, it would set up the event, exactly how you, so if you don't really need to customize it beyond that, it makes it much easier and saves you a little time and hassle. The only thing you would then have to go in and do is if it's a repeating event, if you wanted to set an alert. And by the way, you can have multiple alerts. You can have 2 alerts. So I know people that will have one alert that will go off a day before the event, and then a secondary alarm will go off at, an hour before the event or something like that. My friend's wife, who drives me to my Helen Keller clients, she does that on our shared calendar. She always asks me to make 2 alerts, a day before and an hour before, just to kind of remind her in both, to have kind of a double, reminder. So that's, basically the manual way. And you can, by the way, use Siri on the Mac if you so desire, just like you can do in iOS. And again, it's the same thing I would teach my iOS clients. You would just use the same syntax that I just said about typing. Remember, OAT, on, at, and title. And you just speak the desired event details instead of typing them, and it would have the same outcome for you. So it's up to you, but I'll be perfectly honest. And I've said this to Cliff, and I've said this to a lot of my clients. I'm not a big Siri Mac user. I know a few clients, I know a few people out there use it quite a bit. I'm not really, I'm just used to using Siri on my iPhone. So I really hardly ever use it on the Mac. I know there are advanced stuff you can do with Siri on the Mac. If you can automate things. If you go to, I don't know if that website is still there. Was it macautomation.com or something like that? There's actually stuff you can do with advanced. It's actually under the advanced dictation settings, that where you can get the computer to do a lot of stuff by way of Siri. But I don't really mess with it. To me, it's not really a blind. The problem is when you start getting into that, especially voice control stuff, it doesn't play nice with VoiceOver. So I kind of avoid it even when I'm working with clients, unless the client has a multiple disability where, there is a reason why they can't use the keyboard and such. All right. So that's how you would edit, and you would schedule, and you would delete events. And as I said, finding the event is simply a matter of interacting with the grid. Now, you do have different views of your calendar. So if you go to the menu bar,
Apple
with VOM,
calendar, file, edit, view, window, view, edit,
I think
view.
it's under view,
Menu, show tab bar, show all tab by day, command 1,
by day,
by week,
by
command
week,
2, check mark, by month,
by
command,
month,
by year, command
and by
4.
year. So you can change the view of your calendar and what the grid will show you. As I said, I like the month because it gives me the ability to see a pretty wide range of weeks ahead of me when I need to schedule with clients. But it's entirely up to you. I've not really messed with the day view because I don't know. I just doesn't really, it just breaks the day down into 24 hours, and it's, it just doesn't work for me because of the way I schedule, so I need to schedule sometimes a week or 2 weeks with clients in advance. So day and week are kind of worthless to me, but again, it's there if you desire to use it. So that's entirely up to you, but I do want to show you
Tampa Bay and NY Islander out of Friday, Saturday, April 30th to Friday.
So if I do command right arrow.
Next. Friday, June 10th, 3 of it. Friday, June 3rd, Friday, May 27th, Friday, May 20th.
So you notice it jumps ahead. I'm going to do it again.
Next. Friday, June 24th, Friday, July 1st, Friday, July 8th.
So as I do command right arrow, it's advancing me into the next month. And I'm just going to go back.
Previous.
Back to where I was.
Friday, April 1st, Friday, April 8th, 9th.
Just to be back in the month of April/May here. So that's another quick way to do it. Now, the today button that you heard next to the grid between the previous and next button, I'm not sure if it's really that worth, unless you're using the day view. It really doesn't, like if you're looking at your calendar and month view and you VO space on the today button, it doesn't seem to move VoiceOver focus to that day. So I'm not quite sure if that's a bug or if it's just something about the calendar that visually that a sighted person sees that's different than what VoiceOver is seeing. But today in iOS works really well because it does put you into the day, the 24-hour breakdown of the current day. As far as I'm aware, unless it's been fixed, it doesn't seem to do that on the Mac side of things. And I stand corrected if anybody steps up and says that it actually does work now, but for a long time, it really didn't. So I'm going to stop interacting here with the grid and the canvas.
Out.
And I'm going to go over to the toolbar, to VO left arrow.
Vertical toolbar.
And I'm going to interact with the toolbar.
In toolbar. 8 items. Calendars. Radio button. 1 of 2.
So we have calendars.
Inbox. Radio button.
Inbox.
2 of 2. Add event.
And we have a physical add event button.
Day. Radio button.
Then we can change the views of our day.
Week. Radio
week,
button. Month. Selected. Year. Radio
and
button.
year.
4 of 4. Search text field.
And then the search field. So if you want to search for an event, if you're not sure, if you're not, did I actually put my doctor's appointment on my calendar? You can actually search for the name of a person or how you might think you titled the event. I usually just search by client first name and their last name's first initial. That's usually how I set up the client sessions for myself. And I can just search and find out if I remembered to schedule or if I have an event coming, a meeting scheduled with that client. But I want to go back to
year, month, week, day, added, inbox, calendars, radio button, 1 of 2.
So if we do
selected
VO space on calendars,
out of toolbar,
and we
calendar sources table,
we VO right arrow, you can see a table that is a list of all of your active calendars. And they will be checked if they're selected, and they'll be unchecked if they're deselected.
In calendar sources table, work iCloud, checkbox, shared button. U.S. holidays iCloud, checkbox. New York Mets iCloud, checkbox, shared button.
So you'll hear, it will tell me check, meaning that it's actually checked and selected, and it's telling me it's an iCloud calendar, which all of my calendars are iCloud. If I, for any reason, wanted to deselect or remove the calendar, I could just uncheck it if I wanted to make it disappear from my calendar view. So let's say, for example, I just got to the point where I was so frustrated, I only wanted to see my my home calendar. I didn't want to see work. I didn't want to see anything else. I could literally come here and just temporarily uncheck all of the calendars I don't want to see, go back to my calendar grid, and only the events that are, left on, let's say, my home calendar would be visible. And I could do that, in either direction. I could get rid of everything but the work events, et cetera, et cetera. If I wanted to delete a calendar, I could do that. I think, let's see if we do VO Shift M here. Let me see if that.
Red toggle button, get info, subscription settings, copy URL, unsubscribe.
Yeah, because this is a subscribe calendar, the Mets. So instead of delete, I would unsubscribe if I didn't want to have this calendar anymore. And I think you also have the ability from a sighted perspective, if you're low vision, if you have some vision, I think you can even set the colors for your specific calendars. So if you're looking at your calendar grid, you can actually tell by the color of the event what calendar it actually belongs to, just in case you have like a shared calendar with a spouse or something like that. I know of sighted people and blind people who are married who have shared calendars to keep track of their kids. If the kids are in sports, if they have dance or karate or, whatever, they can keep track of when everybody's got to be at certain places with shared calendars. And I know, like, I have good friends who are sighted, and they actually have different colors for their different calendars to separate work from their shared, home calendar, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how you could check your calendar sources. Now, the other radio button is the inbox, which is if you are involved in a situation where you have calendar subscriptions that are, shared, I should say. Like if you have a work calendar and your boss puts a staff meeting or an emergency, team leader meeting or something like that onto the shared calendar, you'll actually get notified that there is a shared event, and it goes into your inbox, and then you have to decide whether you want to accept it, decline, or say maybe. This can also happen by way of emailed calendar invitations. I'm doing some work with the Apple Consulting Network right now, and anytime they set up sessions, I get it by way of a email, and there's just a ICS attached file that I VO space on in mail, and I open. That's the option I use, and it adds it right to the calendar, and then I can accept from the pop-up window that appears when I actually add the event to my calendar. So I can let the organizer know that I accepted the invitation. So, there's a lot of cool things you can do with the calendar, and it's just a matter of knowing where to look. And then you also have your calendar preferences with, from the calendar menu, or you could do that from, just doing doing command comma to open up the preferences. Remember that command comma opens up the preferences for any focused application window. So if you're in calendar, command comma is going to open up the calendar preferences. If you're in Finder, it's Finder preferences, etc. So it's another quick and easy way without necessarily having to go to that application menu to, to see its preferences. So you can set your default calendar in there. You can even set, if you wanted to, a default alert like I've done, where my events will be 15 minutes by default when they're added to the calendar. So you can set up the default time. And there's some, if you have to add, like if you have a account, let's say, for example, Gmail or Outlook has calendars, accounts that you can add. So you can physically add them that way as well. So you definitely want to take a look at the preferences for any application, let alone calendar, but there might be something in there that's actually of interest or of use to you, based on your situation, whether you're working or at school or whatever the case may be. Even if you're retired and are lucky enough, you could still go and find something. I'm pretty sure that's useful in there. So I'm just going to go
unsubscribe. New York Mets iCloud, out of calendar, sort toolbar, full screen,
go back to the
toolbar, calendars,
and deselect the calendars radio button. So that is basically calendar in a nutshell. So it is not a monster, an ugly, terrible monster that is complex and difficult to use. It's really very straightforward. It just requires practice. If you just mess around in there and you interact with the grid and you play with a couple of scheduled events, I always recommend to my clients to do that manually. Just, to get used to doing it the long way. And then if you want to, save yourself some time by that little trick, as I said, when you type into the title field on, at, and title, that's fine too. But I like people to know the long way around when they're using any application, because there may be moments or instances in which you need to know how to do certain little nuances that you can't do in an more easy fashion. So that's the reason why I try to teach people that long way first. And again, as I said earlier, just keep in mind that if you have it set up properly, your events are going to sync over to your devices. So if you create an event on the Mac, it will show up on your iPhone and vice versa. If you edit an event, it will show up on all your devices. This is very handy to me because sometimes I will be out someplace and I'll get an email or a text from a client that needs to reschedule, or they'll ask me if there's extra available time, and I'll add them or whatever. And at least I know it'll be on all the calendars. There you go.
That is a whole lot of information, even if it didn't take you as long as you expected. I know this seems kind of silly, but for some reason, I've had trouble both with scheduling and with opening, say a meeting that's a Zoom meeting. I get kind of lost and confused in there. So if I'm making one, how do I put it in the calendar where it's a website that I need to click on? But if I'm just going to one, how do you put those on and find it?
The Zoom,
where do they go?
The easiest thing, you actually have to do that in the Zoom app. And I don't know if you can do it through the app or if you have to go to your account on the website, where you actually add your iCloud calendar. So what happens when you schedule the Zoom event, and I think there's also a plugin if you're an Outlook user that you can do this as well, where when you schedule the Zoom event and you're going through the process of setting up the, the start time, the end time, whether you want waiting room people to have to wait in the waiting room or be let in, at the very end, when you hit save, there'll be the option, your calendar should, at least for me, the calendar app actually creates the event and it gets automatically added to my calendar. I just verify the details and it will put the URL, the Zoom link right into the event. Now, similarly, so I think you can do that. If you get an emailed Zoom invitation from somebody, if you VO Shift M on the date and time, I think there's an option in the shortcut menu that allows you to add it to your calendar, because I think it comes up as a data detector or whatever they call it. At least it used to. I'll be honest with you, I haven't done it in a while. The best thing too is to send, the invite as an attachment, because if you open the attachment, then it will automatically, open your calendar and you'll get the option of adding it that way as well. So there's a few ways you can do it. Now, once it's set up properly, when you open the event, so you find the event on your calendar and you'll see that there is a Zoom link in there. And all you have to do, let me see if I have something I can let you hear.
Inbox radio button to out vertical Tuesday it to next month grid it Monday March 28th Monday April 18th Monday April 25th in NC testing train rehearsal at virtual conference one-time room.
Okay, this is not Zoom. This is WebEx, but it's a similar kind of thing.
Event title window rehearsal work pop-up virtual conference one-time room attached text add attachment button. April 20 alert 50 Omar L accepted my staff.
Yeah, there is here. Actually, the Zoom would actually be the Zoom link, or there'll be a join button. Let me see. Actually,
Calendar
I have
window.
I think I have a
Training with NC testing. Start ATIV testing. Event title. Third work. Pop call image. DSBWDO is inviting you to a scheduled Zoom governor meeting. Zoom governor. +1 Karen join button.
There's the join button. So you should have a join button if it's done properly, or, it should also, there'll also be the actual Zoom link and you just VO space on it and that will take you right to that conference room, based on how it's set up. I don't know if, like sometimes you're going to have to put the passcode in, sometimes you'll be in the waiting room, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as like adding it yourself, when you create the event or you get invited, that's really the point is that's really a scenario kind of thing, depending on how it's done, how if you create it, as I said, in Zoom, you can add your calendar right to Zoom so that when you schedule it, it automatically goes onto your calendar. All right, then, guys, thank you very much for attending. All right. Well, everybody have a good rest of the day and a good rest of the week, and I will see you guys later.